This week on the Virtual Skeptics. Bob is the deep state. He disagrees with the cashier. Hope he didn't hurt him. Barb is doing laundry in some kind of southern state. And Tim has got good news and bad news, and I'm hoping it's mostly good. I'm your host, Brian Gregory. I am not a human this week. And that's not just because I had any coffee today.
Have you been a human in previous weeks?
The evidence is out.
Has not yet been determined.
Yeah, it's to be determined. No virtual construct. Let me know if I glitch. Hi, welcome to the show. Hi there. Hi. Hi there. I was saying hi to our 3 people that are watching right now. This is a thing we do stuff. Let me talk to these guys about things and stuff, and I'll say some words. First up, we have Bob Laskowitz, CSI's conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities and Skepticality contributor. Next up, we have Eve Siebert, blogger and editor at Skeptical Humanities and contributor to Skepticality and Insight at skeptic.com. And finally, we have Tim Farley. Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Blogger at Skepticals and Insight at skeptic.com and Skepticality contributor and creator of What's the Harm, and former JREF fellow. And no Barb. I'm sorry, guys. Barb is busy doing her laundry and stuff.
Sometimes that happens.
She had a really good excuse, and I'm not gonna, being one who's been in situations where I haven't had to cancel at the last minute. I completely understand that life sometimes happens, and you all.
This is why I don't do housework.
Should
forgive her
for having a life. Moment of silence for Barbara's life. Anyway.
That's much sadder than it's supposed to be.
On the other hand, she did get to see mooselets.
That's true. That's true. Not sure what that is, but I think it's still true.
It's a baby moose.
Oh, I saw a full-grown
kind of
moose last week.
I thought you said moose lips, and I was kind of confused.
Mooselet. They probably had moose lips also, with I believe a mama moose.
I thought
Mama
moose lips
moose,
was like
mama
some
moose?
kind of Canadian dessert or something. I don't know.
Do moose lips sink ships?
I'm
Oh.
not.
Depends
on how big the moose is and how small the ship is.
Ah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's fine.
If you're watching the shenanigans, you can
Dear God,
Apologize.
Moose lips sink ships.
Moose lips sink ships. You can participate by doing a few things. There's a little chat thing on the YouTube if you're there. And see Tim said hi. Usually it's just me making, obnoxious jokes. Twitter, if you use hashtag Virtual Skeptics, I am trying to pay attention to the people who tweet with the Virtual Skeptics hashtag. I'm sorry. It keeps slipping out. And we will, if you ask questions or if you say something funny, I love the funny ones, and I will put you on. I will say stuff that will make you feel like we appreciate you watching. I think we've bagged the whole trivia question thing because I think that at least I've agreed that I'm not smart enough. So, anyway, I still got the video behind me. If you guys can figure out what that movie is, this one is going to be a little harder than last week's.
For extra internet points.
I can give you a hint though, because this one's hard. I'm going to give you a hint. And this is a Michael Crichton movie.
Oh.
No, hush you.
I'm gonna guess 13th Warrior.
No.
Yeah, I know it's
no Banderas in this movie.
But I'm still guessing it.
Sweet.
Okay.
That's all the starting stuff, I think. I never get it right, so I just kind of wing it and whatever. I think Tim is first this week because, we've missed you so much. We're going to put you in the front of the order. And I hope you got something bang, smash on. Please don't hurt us with the bad news.
I do. Well, yeah, it's mostly good news, I guess. It's about bad information on the internet, as usual. And in particular, fact-checking. And as you know, sort of the focus of all that has been on platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Google, which have become this giant amplification machine for crap in the last few years. And people have been complaining about it for years and years and years, and finally got some motion a few months ago by both Google and Facebook. Not so much Twitter. I guess Twitter's done some things, but particularly Google and Facebook have tried to make some changes in their platform to prevent the virality issue and whatnot. And those changes have taken a couple different forms. They're trying to attack, like anything else on the internet, it's always about where the money is. And the reason like these, and we're talking in particular about, it affects a lot of different misinformation, but in particular, the true original fake news sites. Not what our president says is fake news, but there, if you paid attention, there was this initial wave of sites where it would be like channel4news.com or, or something like that. And it would have like network logos, and it would be, the site would be done like a conventional news site, and it would look like a local news station's new website. So if you clicked on the link and read the article, you'd think, oh, well, this kind of looks like the NBC affiliate in Skokie, Illinois or something. And the sad part is that a lot of those local news websites don't put where they are very prominently on the site. So the fake news sites would take advantage of that, and they wouldn't mention where they were at all. And so they would post these stories that look like, and some of them would just flat out steal logos and put like an NBC logo or an ABC logo or something like that.
Weren't there things like abc.co.com?
Yeah. There were ones that would use, the lookalike domains and stuff like that. Now those, once they get noticed by the trademark owner or the original domain owner, those can get shut down, but sometimes it can be a somewhat tedious process. But the problem is that if you could get a story to go viral, it would, you could get clicks. And if you can get clicks, you can get ad impressions. And the problem that was feeding this whole thing was the platforms like Facebook and Twitter that let things go viral. And then the monetization systems like Facebook's ad network and Google's ad network that are generally, in order that, like most of these systems, so that they can scale really large, there's no human intervention in them. So you can sign up and say, I want to be an ad platform for Google, and they will let you put ads on your site, and no human at Google ever approves your website for having ads on it. And then Google starts writing you checks, basically, based on your clicks. So you can just basically create crap content, make it go viral, and extract money out of Google's bank account. And the dollar values are small enough that Google had no incentive to care about it, because it would be, $1,000 here, or, $10,000 there. So Google doesn't care about that level of money. But, if these clinks...
Must be nice.
Yeah,
I know.
Well, when you've got $45 billion in the bank, it's easy to ignore stuff like that. So people started giving Google crap about it, and one of the things they've done is start to take these sites out of the network when they notice them. And then Facebook has done some fact-checking stuff, and they've partnered with sites like Snopes and factcheck.org and PolitiFact. And so that when they are notified of a legitimate fact check of a particular article, they will link them together, and they will intercede in the posting process. And if you go to my first slide, you can see an example that I created just a little while ago. This is literally me trying to post a ridiculous article about Donald Trump from a site called St. George Gazette. It looks like it's a newspaper.
That's hilarious.
Called the Gazette, and on St. George, wherever that is. It's a fake news site, and they just create whatever would get people to post. And of course, things that get people riled up and wanting to post is often a lot of political stuff and a lot of very partisan stuff. And that's why, people have gotten concerned about it, because it affects elections and things like that. And as you can see, simply pasting the URL into the post box before you've even posted causes the summary to come up, the little preview, and then it puts a big red box there that says, hey, by the way, factcheck.org and Snopes.com say this is nonsense. So hopefully the idea is that you will notice that red box and maybe think twice about posting it. So it's kind of a nice solution because it's not Facebook. Facebook doesn't stop you from posting this, but they give you this little warning. And then if you do post it, that little dispute will stay there on the post. So the people who see your repost of it will see the fact check. And they can click through, I believe, and actually go to the actual fact check. Now,
there are so many people I know who really, really, really needed this forever since they started interneting.
I know. A long time ago, I thought about building something that would simply do keyword matching against Snopes articles as an email plugin to keep your grandmother from. Inevitably, the problem with any of these sorts of plugin things or tools that you install is that the people, and I've mentioned this the last show I was on, it's why I'm kind of down on the whole Skep Tools thing, is the very people you need to be using tools are not the people who are ever going to install them. So it's important that platforms like Facebook that everybody uses build these things into the platform, because it's the only way the general public is going to use fact-checking tools. So this was a good thing, and Google's starting to when they notice or when people report to them that these sites are baloney, Google will take away their ad accounts. And the reason I'm saying this is all good news is there's an article today in the USA Today titled, "It Hurts My Wallet, How One Fake News Publisher is Faring After Facebook Crackdown." And essentially some journalists have found the people behind some of these websites and interviewed them. And, figured out how they're, and some of them are very forthcoming. I'm just posting stuff to make money on the internet. There was even an article 6 months, a year ago about how a bunch of it was being generated. A bunch of really partisan American election stuff was being generated out of a single town in Macedonia because a bunch of teenagers there, they had this huge unemployment rate, and if you were a teenager, because of the local laws there, you weren't allowed to have a job in the first place. And teenagers there figured out that they could create fake news websites and get money from Google, and they figured out that Trump stories would get clicks. And so they were generating all these crazy Trump stories that you would think were, some sort of political operative, and it wasn't. It was some literally a Macedonian teenager who couldn't care less about the American election. All he cares about is clicks.
Until he dies in nuclear fire.
They found some of these people, and basically this USA Today article today says that some of these people are admitting that these things are working. They're finding that their stuff is not going viral as much, and they're not getting as many clicks, and in some cases their Google accounts are getting shut down, so they can't have ads. Of course, there's always another ad network that you can put in. Google's is just the sort of the biggest and the easiest one to sign up for. So it's sort of a giant game of whack-a-mole. Now the problem is, and here comes the bad news, the problem is that in order to not turn this into another giant game that people can game, is Facebook chose this method of partnering with the fact check sites. So in order for this to work, the folks at factcheck.org and Snopes.com have to notice these posts and have to bother to write a fact check about it. And that takes time. And there are more Macedonian teenagers out there in the world than there are people working at factcheck.org by a huge margin. So these posts outrun. And if you go to my next slide, I'll show you an example. I went to that St. George Gazette, and the top story, the front page story on St. George Gazette is already, what's today, August 2nd? It's already 4 days old, I believe. I think it's dated July 30th. And it says Donald Trump plans to resign from office within 30 days, and you do not get a fact check icon on Facebook when you paste that link in right now. So nobody has bothered to fact check the front page of St. George Gazette right now.
Yeah, well.
And so that post can still potentially go viral.
What a flattering picture of Paul Ryan.
I know. So
why don't we just give the Macedonian teenagers jobs at Snopes?
That would be a good thing. Well, that's my second bad news.
Yeah.
God,
is another story.
Having money.
Another story that I posted the other day on Twitter is that Snopes is in a big legal fight right now. Essentially, as they were growing their site, and if you follow Snopes, you know that it was founded by a married couple who subsequently divorced, and basically the wife got bought out, and so she's gone. She's not involved in the site anymore, Barbara Mickelson. But the guy who kept the site, David Mickelson, he entered into some business partnerships with another company to put ads on the site and to do some sort of businessy things with the site. So I guess so he could focus on the content and hire other people to create content. And there's a legal dispute between him and the company that does all the stuff. And he's claiming that they're not giving him any of his ad money, so he can't continue to run the site. And there's a hearing, I think, on Friday. Today's Wednesday. Yeah, it's on Friday. They're going into court to, have a hearing in front of a judge about various countersuits where they're suing each other. And it's a very sticky, long, I won't even try to explain because I didn't even truly understand the relationship between these two companies that own parts of Snopes. And it has to do with verbal agreements versus written agreements and partnerships and stock cuts and blah, blah, blah. So there was a very real possibility that Snopes, as we know it, might pass into the hands of somebody other than the original founder, which means who knows what they might do with the site. They might turn it into, a news site or a new BuzzFeed or who knows, whenever.
Put out by the St. George Gazette.
Yeah. Whenever a domain name changes hands, you never know whether the new owner is going to have the same level of care and interest that the original owner had. So that's something to watch on Friday to see if the judge rules anything, or we may not know for a few days after that while the judge figures out what to rule. But Snopes has got some issues. So the basic they did do a fundraiser, and they did successfully raise. They needed $500,000 and they raised $600,000. So if you Google Save Snopes, there's a fundraiser if you want to chip in a few bucks. So the good news is some of these anti-disinformation moves by Facebook and Google are actually working, but it's hard to scale them fast enough to work fast enough to really shut down these sites quickly. Yeah. So we'll see what happens in the long term.
But, about those Macedonian teenagers, not everyone knows this, but that's how Alexander the Great got started.
That's true.
Mostly it was fake news about his father, but yeah.
But it went on to fake news about himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I saw him as recently I heard an interview with someone who identified Alexander the Great as the first media manipulator.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So Eve, you're kind of right.
I know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's been a lot of good coverage of this whole misinformation and fake news on the internet thing, where people have sort of said that, if you look on the really long global scale, this isn't anything new. This is just an old pattern being adapted to new technology. There used to be, if you can go to old newspapers from the 19 or 1800s and find bullshit stories about politicians and hoaxes
fact check
and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, cave paintings. It's like Og didn't kill that bison.
I don't believe it's a bison with 5 legs. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's really hard to make cave paintings go viral, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's hard to move them, and you got to bring. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. That was very interesting. Pierre Cloutier says the first media manipulator was Ramses, the second.
Oh.
Yeah.
I hear a
I can see
throwdown.
that too.
Yeah.
I can see that too. But it
Someone
seems
gotta-
like they were
Someone
very
gonna
early
eliminate
on.
the dummies like me and explain.
Lots of images.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, to shape a legacy, basically. And so when you think about Alex, I mean, he did kick everybody's ass, including his own, ultimately.
Yeah.
You know, but he was conscious of how he was being portrayed. You can see it in ancient Rome in the way in which the Caesars shaped their identities.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, Alexander the Great also, wanted the Egyptians to declare him a god, and also his companions, things like that. Which, I mean, that's pretty good media manipulation.
To be a god.
Well, I mean,
well, they would do.
Everyone
they would
wants to be canonized.
Definitely do that with.
Well, the Romans did.
They would add when the emperors would be deified, the current heirs who were ruling would add, son of a god, would it'd be like FD, like Filius Dei or something. I mean, it was like,
yeah.
So that was.
Well, it's like the entire Book of Kings was deliberately there just to prove that this man referenced in the other stories, or this man who was going to come, was justifiably a ruling.
Had the
genes of the kings.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Even though he had no father.
No, it was his own father.
Yeah, but not his father. It was his adopted father.
No,
so genes.
I always thought that the father and the son who are the same person somehow.
You're in the wrong part of the Bible.
Am I in the wrong testament?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Kings.
Am I in the wrong
sorry.
testament?
See, yes, I am in the wrong
Is
testament.
it AD
That's
yet?
my new tagline. I am in the wrong testament. Okay, Eve's up next.
Did you ever see the outtakes from Life of Brian?
I have, yes.
Where the shepherds are sitting out in the field and they get in a long conversation about, whatever's going on in the next field. And they talk about how much they love sheep. And then one of them goes to the other, is it AD yet?
Is it AD yet?
Nice.
Yes, very nice. So Eve's up next, and I want to know what she did to the cashier.
Nothing really.
Details, please.
But yesterday I was at the ShopRite, which is a fairly traumatic
Did
experience.
you shop
anyway.
right at the ShopRite?
Yeah.
It's impossible to do that.
Should have shopped smart at the S Smart.
Anyway, a cashier noticed my Shakespeare First Folio t-shirt and asked if I'd been watching TNT's new show about Shakespeare called Will, which she assured me was great, really awesome, just great.
She had no idea what she was getting herself into.
And I just smiled and nodded, really. But in fact, I had
the only way skeptics can cope, really.
Yeah, I had seen the first show, which began airing last month. I took notes, but then I completely blocked it out and forgotten about it. But then the cashier's words brought the trauma just rushing back. So Will deals with Shakespeare's early life in London. If you can bring up the first slide, there's a promotional
sexy man
photograph for it. He's very pretty, has a lot more hair than Shakespeare seems to have actually had. And by the time they filmed the second episode, I believe he graduated from drama school. Anyway, no, not yet. So the show was created and written by Craig Pierce.
Okay.
Oh, possibly. People have mohawks, piercings, tattoos. Yeah. But so created by Craig Pierce, who co-wrote many of Baz Luhrmann's films, including Romeo plus Juliet. Now, Shakespeare also had a hand in writing that, but I believe he asked to have his name removed from the credits.
I like the sword guns.
Anyway, so I had watched the first episode of Will online. It's called The Play's the Thing, and I hated it very much. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to go into how much I hated it, but I really hated it a lot. I would like to point out, however, that Christopher Marlowe's first line and you can bring up the next slide, which shows Marlowe and Shakespeare.
Wow,
it's like Aerosmith.
Are they sparkly vampires or something?
They might as well be. His first line is, "I've been far too busy on Her Majesty's Secret Service to write." And apparently, it's just not that secret. Because if it were that secret, you wouldn't just go around saying, "I've been far too busy on Her Majesty's Secret Service to write." It's sort of the first thing they tell you about this, the spy ring is, like the first rule of spy ring.
Was the spy ring inspiring?
Oh.
Anyway, the point is that I watched a special version of the episode that is still available on TNT's website, and it's one with annotations.
Does Christopher Marlowe have a knuckle tattoo?
I think he may.
Look, this little skull on his. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's got one on. He's got one on his chest too. That's like.
Yeah. Okay. So, as I said, people with mohawks. It's supposed to be punk. There's also a ragamuffin with a mullet. And people.
They look like they should be in
crowd
David
surf
Blaine's.
and stage dive, and it's punk. It's stupid. But anyway, so this episode is available
Everything
with
is derivative.
annotations like pop-up videos, but dumber. And this is called Powered by Genius. The Play's the Thing. And there's also a little making of video. So I'm going to address the historical facts in the annotations rather than the complete and utter bullshit in the show. Oh. Although I will note that in the making of video, Pierce says there are many factual things in this episode. Will Shakespeare really was 25 years old in 1589? He was really from Stratford. He was married. Wow. That is some commitment to historical accuracy.
That's the three things that are right?
Yeah, apparently.
Well, I got three. That's more than most.
Yeah. The making of video also features popular, enthusiastic, and personable TV historian Michael Wood, who made an In Search of Shakespeare series in 2003.
Marlowe's wearing guy liner.
Yes. I also watched today the first episode of In Search of Shakespeare. It's awful. He seems to have discovered a lot of things that people had already discovered, and then he makes some unnuanced logical leaps, and then ultimately it just starts making up stories. And so a lot of that has found its way into Will. I'll mention some of it later. But anyway, in the show, Will invents the word bedazzled. And everyone's either horrified or amazed that he's invented a new word. It's like, oh, you can't invent words. You never went to university. Which is stupid. Anyway, and this is grade A premium bullshit, of course. But an annotation says, Shakespeare really is credited with inventing the word bedazzled.
Also bedazzled.
Yeah. Shakespeare invented a few more words, 1,700 of them, according to scholars.
Well, so these are actually pop-ups? that come?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well, no. When the complete print edition of the Oxford English Dictionary appeared in 1928, the first recorded use of many words was attributed to Shakespeare. Now, the OED never claimed that he'd coined all these words, but that was sort of the impression people got and just sort of went wild with it. But the quotations came from volunteers who sent them in on little bits of paper, including an insane person who's really good at it, by the way. But he was doing it from a madhouse. But they didn't. These people obviously had not read every book in the English language. They certainly weren't looking through a lot of works written before the printing press was introduced. And they looked at a lot of Shakespeare. So there's a certain amount of selection bias there. Now, with modern searchable databases, the list of words first recorded in Shakespeare has diminished a lot. And you also have to keep in mind that most words first appear in spoken language before written language.
Sure.
Plus, you also have to consider the vast number of works that haven't survived, including a large number of Tudor and Jacobean plays. So Shakespeare, no doubt, did coin some new words or new usages, but so did a lot of other people. So so the whole thing of like, oh, you can't say bedazzled. There's already the word dazzled. That's silly. And his contribution to our vocabulary and the comparative size of his vocabulary are often exaggerated.
See, the problem I have is that punks would not act like this.
Well, there's that.
I'm just saying.
In the show, Will is Catholic. His entire family is Catholic. He's related to two Catholic martyrs, Edward Arden and Robert Southall, although Southall's still alive in the show. And this comes from Wood, and it's all a bit dubious, including the idea that he was actually related to Edward Arden or Robert Southall.
Is this Greenblatt stuff?
No, this is Michael Wood stuff.
Okay.
And again, the first part of In Search of Shakespeare is he's talking about Catholic stuff all the time, and the connections are really dubious. I mean, he may have. It's usually disputed, but he may have had some. He and his family have had some Catholic sentiments, but it's one thing being sort of nostalgic for. I liked the Mass and Purgatory was kind of cool, versus actively being involved in a sort of ring of active resistance and hiding Jesuit priests and stuff like that, and again the idea that he was actually related to these two martyrs is really questionable. But anyway, an annotation says Queen Elizabeth's persecution of Catholics was driven partly out of revenge for her half-sister Mary's earlier crackdown on Protestants. Well, no. This makes it sound as if she persecuted Catholics out of a personal vendetta against Mary. Now, Mary I was Catholic, and she did very zealously persecute Protestants and earned the name Bloody Mary. But Elizabeth's reign began with her trying to find a middle ground and avoid offending Protestants or Catholics. There was no great persecution of Catholics at the beginning of her reign. Persecutions increased in response to Catholic plots against her, and then Catholic plots against her increased in response to persecution. So there's a whole sort of vicious circle there. Another annotation says, it was widely believed at the time that the Pope was plotting the Queen's overthrow, which makes it kind of sound like a conspiracy theory, despite the fact that they later correctly say Pope Pius V renewed a papal bull in 1588, which declared Queen Elizabeth I to be a heretic and the servant of crime, threatening excommunication to all Catholics who obeyed her. So in other words, the Pope was kind of plotting her overthrow.
out in the open, really.
Yeah. They further say, at this
How
time,
dare you.
Protestant England was under military threat from powerful Catholic nations, Spain and Italy, which is true-ish, except Italy was not a nation.
Yeah, whoops.
And wasn't, a unified nation for centuries. Whatever. Anyway, finally, well, not really finally. There's a lot more crap, but let's just say finally. Finally,
yes,
they mentioned the position of women at the time, both in the show and in the annotations. An annotation says, despite the fact that Elizabeth I ruled the country, women in the era could not own property, could not vote, and legally belonged to their fathers or husbands. Well, no. It's true, women couldn't vote. That's all that's true in that annotation. Women got the vote in, I believe, 1918 in Britain, which was much later. But, it's important to consider that history didn't just happen to men, and to acknowledge the struggles women have faced. But just making shit up about how badly women were treated doesn't really help. A famous and influential article by Joan Kelly asked, did women have a renaissance? She argued that in practical terms, women were worse off in the Renaissance than they were in the Middle Ages. However, women could and did own property in Elizabethan England. If there were sons, the sons would inherit. The oldest son would inherit. But if there were no sons and there were daughters, the women would inherit. And women, as I said, women could own property. Women did own property. And while in practical terms, sometimes it might seem like women were chattel, they weren't really chattel. They did not in any way, shape, or form legally belong to their menfolk. That's just stupid. So what I'm saying is, don't get your history from dumb dramas, but also don't get it from allegedly historical annotations appended to that program, or from shows that might end up on PBS, which begin In Search Of. I've noticed Michael Wood also did In Search of Beowulf, and In Search of Eric Bloodaxe. However, Anglo-Saxon England was his area of specialty, so they might not be quite as.
Pierre,
but they might
be. Mentions In Search of Trojan War. Search of.
Yeah,
Trojan War.
that's what he was really, I think, first became known for, and I saw that many years ago, and I don't remember it, but I have concerns about it too. I seem to recall it's like following Heinrich Schliemann and going, "Ha! He was correct when he believed the Trojan War really happened." But it's a way, a teeny tiny way, that's true. But in a much more significant way, as my cat Jessie is telling me, that's not true at all. Really, really not true at all. So he's enthusiastic. He's entertaining. So you want to believe him, but wow, there's some crap in there.
Did he mention that everyone believed the world was flat back then?
Oh God, no,
yeah,
not yet.
No, okay.
No,
because we all know that.
No, that was the Dark Ages you're thinking of.
Oh yeah, I thought it was like the 70s.
Yeah.
They only believed it when it was
now.
Yes. It's just,
God,
we're all going back there. Anyway, I learned quite a bit from that. There was a whole bunch of stuff that, I would have watched the show and just been like, hey, this is like pop-up video, and turned it off. But now I want to watch it and see all the wrong stuff.
And now mock it.
Yeah.
This is the only reason to watch something like the History Channel, really.
Every time I listen, every time I listen to Eve for 20 minutes, I feel smarter.
Like, yeah.
Good. But mostly only in comparison.
Well, there's that. Anything on the Twitters or on the chat? Let's see. Pierre Cloutier mentions that he says women in Britain got the vote in stages.
Yeah.
He mentions 1917 to 1928. So what little bits of various
yeah, I
things.
think because I looked this up earlier, and they got, it was like householders who were over the age of 30 got the vote, and then so it was a while before they had
full franchise
equality in voting. Yeah,
they weren't fully vested until they had put years in.
Is it me? Did you make note of the fact that it was true that women in the Renaissance didn't vote, Renaissance England didn't vote, that neither did men? Did you mention that?
Well, seems... yeah. Well, I mean, there was a House of Commons.
Yeah.
But certainly, there's not very few people would have been able to vote in any practical way.
Yeah. Well. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eve. Bob is next, and there are people watching that tuned in for the sole purpose of him fulfilling his promise that he's going to scream for 12 minutes straight. So I'm going to start the timer.
I can't. I have neighbors who can call the police.
Oh. Well, that would be fun to watch too. But
that'd be great. Yeah. Watch me get swatted. So, yeah, it's this week, yesterday, news broke, and I'm not even sure how to start this one.
Screaming?
Well, we'll back up to Balticon, as I gave a talk about conspiracy theories, and at the end I gave two kind of modern conspiracy theories to kind of illustrate some points. The first one was Pizzagate. The other one was the Seth Rich conspiracy.
Yeah.
And Seth Rich was one that broke at the end of last summer, right after the WikiLeaks emails, the DNC emails. Julian Assange suggested that maybe this murdered kid who was shot as he was returning from a bar late at night, walking home.
Past a pizza shop.
No, don't start. So this is how things get started, man. So so he got, there was some press at the time, instigated by, I think it was Julian Assange talking to Megyn Kelly saying maybe he was our guy, which was total crap. There's no evidence. It's what the intent seems to be is to create doubt about who had acquired the emails. 17 intelligence and law enforcement agencies say it's Russia. Albino rapist indoor kitty says it's Seth Rich, right? But they want to open up that little wiggle room of doubt. So that was kind of cynical, and that was at the end of last summer. Then in April and May, the Seth Rich story started popping up in my feeds again. I may have mentioned it on the show. And I heard the DNC Seth Rich story pop up on an off-camera press gaggle at the White House, and that's what interested me. It's like, wow, our president's just leaked Five Eyes intelligence to the Russians, and someone asked a question about Seth Rich at the press gathering. Are you serious? And so I started looking into it, and we had it's basically a version of the Clinton death list, right? It's the Clintons if you have died after meeting the Clintons have caused your death. And there are like 50 people on the Snopes article who are reputed to have been killed by the Clintons. So, I mean, this is a kind of a classic conspiracy theory at this point. So yesterday, David Folkenflik, who has a fun-to-say name, broke news that there was a lawsuit. This story had the telling. Let's see, the April-May version of the Seth Rich story was back in the news again because the people who were involved with it are now suing each other, right? So, and it's kind of hard to sort out what happened. I had focused on the original story that came out of the Fox News affiliate in DC or Baltimore, I think. It was released prematurely there, but then got lots of play on national Fox News. And it comes down to the name to a guy named Rod Wheeler, who is a former police detective, who is a Fox News contributor. He's I guess he's paid for commentary on crime and that sort of thing. And he was, it turns out, hired by the family and paid by another person who's named in this lawsuit, a capital financier advisor type guy in Dallas named Ed Butowski, who is also an occasional not paid contributor to Fox. So this rich guy was paying for Seth Rich's family's investigator, okay, who was Rod Wheeler. Unbeknownst to me, when I gave the talk, there was another person apparently involved whose name was Malia Zimmerman, who's it seems like a stringer. You know, she's writing for Fox News for a couple of years now. I looked at kind of her portfolio under her bio at the Fox website, and it's kind of what you would expect. There's anti-Clinton stuff. It's pretty right-wing investigative reporting, as it were. And so what Wheeler's saying is that this whole thing was fabricated. Like, this whole thing was made up. When it broke, he's suing Butowski and Zimmerman and Fox for for misrepresenting what he said. But I'll tell you, I went back and looked at the videos of him giving interviews, and he is totally not trustworthy and has never been trustworthy. So when I saw this lighting up and just burning like wildfire yesterday, the headlines, lawsuit claims that the White House, Fox News, made up the Seth Rich story, I was really, really concerned that people weren't, kind of were setting aside the idea that this is just an allegation, and it's an allegation from a known liar who once told Bill O'Reilly that, I shit you not, that lesbian gangs were roaming the countryside, raping little girls with pink Glocks. What self-respecting lesbian would have a pink Glock? Come on.
Well, has it been bedazzled?
It's bedazzled.
Good.
But no, it's just like
that was good. That's good.
It's so he says outrageous shit for a living, as far as I can tell, right? And so you read the document, you read the complaint, and basically his concerns can be summed up. Well, he has two quotes in the Zimmerman article, which I haven't been able to find. Fox took it down, but Sean Hannity picked up the story and ran with it for a couple weeks. So there's some of it is being churned up in there, so you can see some of it there. Zimmerman or Wheeler says that these two quotes were made up. My investigation up to this point shows there was some degree of email exchange between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks. The second, my investigation shows that someone within the DC government, Democratic National Committee, or Clinton team is blocking the murder investigation from going forward. That is unfortunate. Seth Rich's murder is unsolved as a result of that. He may or may not have said that at any point, but you look at what he was saying the week that this shit was, that this storm originally hit, and he was saying things that are completely interchangeable with this. So it strikes me as kind of disingenuous that his lawsuit. The other thing that we don't know is what exactly the hell was he investigating between February and May when the story broke. We don't get any details of that in the lawsuit. We don't know how complicit he was in working on this. As far as I can tell from the lawsuit, he only interviewed a cop. The guy who was in charge of, as a private investigator, he was interviewed the DC police who was in charge of the murder investigation. That's as far as I could tell. He also says he didn't have, during the when you look at the Sean Hannity interview with Wheeler, and if you can go to my slide, this is a pretty picture of the lawsuit. Ooh.
I know that format. Hold it. There's a comment in the middle of it. Oh, it's a text message.
Yeah, he uses that as part of his evidence. And that was kind of funny too. Like the preliminary statement, it's like, I'm going to mention the president on the first page. So that's supposed to be coming from Ed Putowski, the financier who's funding this thing. Mm-hmm. He's saying that the president just read the article, but Putowski is a liar, right? Like he takes responsibility for Benghazi, is what he says. For the Benghazi story.
Right.
Who knows if that's true? If it's false, he's a liar. If it's true, he's still a fucking liar. He's just not trustworthy. So who knows if he was, what his motivation was for throwing the president. I don't know. What scares me is that it confirms
it was a joke, didn't he?
He said it was a joke. The skeptical sense of self-preservation, makes me really hesitant to accept anything that anyone involved here says at face value at any time, even though it confirms what I really think about Fox and about Trump in the White House. But that just means you have to kick in those instincts have to kick in and evaluate what do we really have here, and it's not a lot. If he has the goods, if these are real screenshots, if they have he has recordings of conversations and stuff, that will be interesting. But certainly Wheeler seems to be misrepresenting himself as being kind of an innocent victim here. When you look at him on Hannity, he's lying. I mean, he's just saying bullshit. So let me see. So in May, Wheeler started issuing corrections very quickly after he was first interviewed by Fox 5, the local affiliate. In their updated version of the original article, Wheeler told Fox 5 DC that he had sources at the FBI confirming there was evidence of communication between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks. This is the verbatim of that exchange. Fox 5, you have sources at the FBI saying there's information, Wheeler, for sure, that would link Seth Rich to WikiLeaks. Absolutely, yeah, that's confirmed. elsewhere in the interview, he had said, I have a source inside the police department that has looked at me straight in the eye and said, Rod, we were told to stand down on this case, and I can't share any information with you. Now, that's highly unusual for a murder investigation, especially from a police department. Again, I don't think it comes from the chief's office, but I do believe there's correlation between the mayor's office and the DNC, and that is the information that will come out Tuesday, right? This is exactly what he's complaining about, you know. He's making basically the same claims in the quotes that he says are defaming him. You know, the things that he says he never said, but he said functionally, equivalently the same things. So yeah, this is confusing. It sounds like the source for the FBI claim is Seymour Hersh. Do you remember him?
Oh boy,
he's had some issues in the last couple of years.
Yeah, he's the one with the whole alternate theory that we didn't really kill bin Laden, or we killed him.
We chopped him up and threw him out of a helicopter.
Yeah, or
you know, and it's based on anonymous sourcing, and he's done that. They also broke the My Lai massacre, I believe.
Right, so that's what makes it an interesting and sad story, because this guy has done some legitimately great journalism in the past.
Yeah,
seems to be getting hoodwinked by anonymous sources now.
But even Hersh was saying, I heard rumors. Wheeler took 2 and 2 and turned it into 45.
Yeah.
You know, like, so anyway. So what's my takeaway from this recent injection of more craziness and backstabbing? My takeaway is that so far we just have an allegation in a lawsuit. We know that during the press gaggle, Sean Spicer, when asked about these allegations, that he didn't want to get into it. It's clear he didn't want to get into it. He rather would talk about the Five Eyes leaks. Oh my God. Think about that, okay? Rather than what is being stated was the spin that was going to distract from the Russia thing. Everybody involved is turtle vomit and a lying sleazeball, and you can't accept anything that any of them say at any time at face value. Wheeler's story has been changing since the very beginning. We don't have confirmation that Trump read it, which is one of the charges that is being made, that, you know, that the president read this, and that he wanted things added to the story or something. And we should have confirmation from inside the White House about this, because we have confirmation about the things that happened on Air Force One, right? Trump dictating Junior's misleading letter, for instance, about the meeting at Trump Tower. We can get these types of confirmation. We don't have that here. The Rich family was considering suing Wheeler. I haven't seen anybody raise that issue. Whatever happened to those, you know, that threat? We need to check to see if Wheeler has what he says he has. And I don't know how he's hurt. His reputation could possibly be hurt by this, when he's functionally said basically the same thing. And the lesbian fucks things. He has no credibility from the get-go. So that's what I got. I there may be a story here, but I'm not sure that it's a story that we're hearing. Taking anything that we got to be so careful not to just believe what we want to believe. I would very much like to believe that Fox News is making shit up, and just to distract from Russia meddling or whatever. But if you're going to hang your hat on the testimony of this dipshit, you know, give me something better.
Well, and it's like any other lawsuit. You can make any sort of allegation you want in a lawsuit. It doesn't mean anything until it gets in front of a judge and goes through some hearings, and you know, at least get a some sort of a ruling.
Will it be discovery and that sort of thing that you have to go through to find out what the facts of the case are? Right.
The whole thing can get thrown out of court before you ever do anything if the judge thinks it's complete nonsense.
Yeah, the judge in this, or the lawyer for Wheeler says he wants to depose the president.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah. So if you go to the next page, this is how it was reported on Fox.
Yeah.
Right. And I like that DC slain staffer was in contact with WikiLeaks report. Say investigators, like as if it could just say assholes on Trump Reddit, you know. Flashback: Assange implies murdered DNC staffer was WikiLeaks source. Assange, and then Tucker tonight: gay conservative writer slams campus activist. I can't hear you, Eve.
You're muted, Eve.
You're muted, Eve.
I know. I said, "Oh, Tucker."
Oh, Tucker.
I missed it.
Yeah, if you could bring the next slide up. These are the people who are involved. That's the Zimmerman up at the upper left. Butowski is singing opera. And the third partner in this. Yeah, and
he's gonna cry.
The third person in this menage a trois is Wheeler being interviewed by Hannity, who just likes to watch.
That's more than I wanted to know.
Yep.
And there's the logo. Hey.
May they all rot in hell. Every last fucking one of them.
Oh, wow.
There is no justice.
It's a story without heroes, people. It's been done.
I'd thank you for that, but you made me feel soiled.
Sorry about that.
I'm going to just move because, I mean, wow, that's messed up.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. Because I've got one story.
It's the robot apocalypse.
I kind of like it sometimes because usually I'm just talking about some cool tech, right? But I like it when something shows up in the news that it's kind of because of, robotics gets a lot of attention because there's a lot of engineering going on, or some kind of technology gets attention. AI is getting a lot of attention in the last year or so. Then some headlines come up where public fear or the images we have of these things from movies and TV get mixed into the headlines. So a story that's been floating around it's been 2 or 3 weeks at least, is that Facebook researchers had to shut down a pair of their artificial intelligences because they developed their own language.
Mm.
And here we get an example of one of the headlines. Researchers shut down AI that invents its own language. Well, there's also other ones. It's like they equate it to like cybernet and AI fear, and they had to shut it down. Like they hit the big red button to shut everything down because, oh my God, they're gonna
pull the plug on it. Oh my God, it'll escape into the interwebs.
Yes. So the whole robot apocalypse fear kind of entwined in this. So I went and I looked a little further, and actually it was a pretty good Gizmodo article out this week that did a pretty good takedown. And the details of this are really not that interesting. Now, I mean, some of it is. I mean, there's been a lot of research, especially since some of the big names like IBM and Google and have come out with their great big pattern recognizing neural net machines that they've got like public APIs now. They people doing experiments on them. They've shown them off that they can do cool things like recognize language and answer Jeopardy questions. And they're applying it to large data set analysis like medical records and financial records and things like this. And they're selling them to do this kind of stuff. Well, one of the other things that has been happening with this is that they've been developing these chatbots. And the point, I mean, in this particular project, they were trying to develop a chatbot that would talk to a human and negotiate a deal or negotiate like the Verizon guy on the phone who's trying to get you to buy long distance service, which I guess they don't do that anymore because no one needs long distance service. It's all part of your package. Anyway, so the idea, they essentially want robotic telemarketers. And
boy.
I know. So they've been developing this, and they've actually had some pretty good success with humans. But it was probably a PhD paper. It wasn't. There's not all the details online because they focus on all the scary stuff, but they didn't focus on the actual research stuff. And I don't think the paper's probably not been published yet. But it was a research student at, I think it was Georgia Tech, who got the bright idea to have two of these talk to each other, which we've seen some of the lesser known chatbots online.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yes, talking to each other. Usually
philosophical. It's like,
I know.
Do you believe in God?
Quite funny.
Yeah.
What happens? Well, in this case, because these particular chatbots were designed to learn from the conversation and improve how they're talking during the conversation, well, the chatbots were not incentivized in their programming to actually use proper English. And that means is that the way that these AI engines work is that there can be weights to things. So like things that are desirable they're weighted to be, I guess reward is a good way of saying it. The robots aren't actually feeling pleasure or anything like that, but
the element gets weighted.
They're trying to improve their algorithm, and things in what they do are weighted so that that's a judge of how the algorithm is being improved. And one of the qualities of their conversation or of what the responses that was not judged as improvement is actually using good English or proper English. So you got a chatbot talking to another chatbot. Neither one of them has to stay with the English language. So they start developing shortcuts like we do in language, but their shortcuts are weird and a little disturbing. And this is one of the conversations that seems to have been in a lot of these articles. So one of the chatbot, his name is Bob.
Kill all humans.
And the other one is named Alice.
Who the fuck is Alice?
Okay, so Bob says, I can I everything else. Alice says, balls have zero to me. Bob says, you I everything else. Alice says, balls have a ball to me. So what they're negotiating in this particular clip of a larger conversation is how to divvy up a collection of things. And there's some balls is one of the things that's in there. So it's like a collection of different items, and they have to negotiate how best to distribute them between the two of them. And because they're doing this conversation over time, they drop all of the superfluous language. They develop an efficient protocol. And because neither one of them cares to use the English language, they end up doing this shorthand, which sounds really creepy to listen to. And therefore humans get all scared and push the red button because,
how did they... I'm just curious, how did they agree on, this is taking a while, let's use this shorthand? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, it's something in there. They don't detail the algorithms online, but it's something in the algorithms that we're trying to optimize for getting the task completed as opposed to actually using language. So,
okay.
Yeah, the shorthand. And robots, they don't care about all the stuff that we care about. So, and it wasn't shut down because, there was like a computer scientist in a white coat watching this exchange and going, oh my God, we can't have this. The robots are going to rebel. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was like they watched the responses, and actually it was more like they reviewed.
Would you like to play a game of tic-tac-toe?
Yes. They reviewed the responses and said, this is not really what we're trying to do. So, because they want something that can talk to humans, not to other robots. So they turned it off because it wasn't doing what
they need a protocol droid.
Yes, they want more C-3PO than R2-D2.
Yes.
So it's just one of those quirky things. This is what happens from time to time, is that technology is complicated, engineering is complicated, research is complicated, and the details, if they boil down the right way, someone gets an exciting idea, exciting meaning it attracts attention, and that turns into a headline, and that gets repeated all over the internet, and it's usually not the truth.
Yep.
Or misleading, at least. Yeah. So
there is sort of at the core of that story, there is an interesting nugget, which is sort of the thing that's kind of dangerous about AI. And it's not they will kill us dangerous, but it is the things happen in these learning algorithms, and we don't necessarily know why.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? The computer learns to classify a photo, and we don't know, and it might be proven under certain test conditions to be very good at classifying certain photos, but we don't know exactly what it's looking at the photo and why it classifies the photo. And the reason that's, it just ends up with stupid stuff when you look at, you go into Google search and say, show me pictures of cats, and some cinnamon buns show up. It's like, haha, okay. But when a similarly constructed algorithm is used to decide whether or not you get your home loan, then all of a sudden it becomes an issue of, is this computer discriminating against me?
Yeah.
And if so, why is this computer discriminating against me? And is it possible that a computer could be racist?
Yeah.
No, I've heard people.
That was something that came up in facial recognition and the other things that depend on imagery.
Yeah, so those things are coming up.
They're also, those algorithms are optimized by humans, which have biases too. So,
right, when you use human-based training information, literally the racism or the sexism or the whatever-ism of the humans can get trained into the algorithm, and
not
you can literally end up with unintentionally, often, and you can literally end up with a racist computer algorithm.
Like if I prime it with a data set that just happens to be biased, and I don't even realize that I've biased it.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. So, yeah.
That's wild. There was a report, I think it was on the BBC, of I forget what they were looking at, like, I don't know, infrastructure development from satellite photographs, and the algorithm became really good at identifying places, that needed like water or something, right? Mm-hmm. But they couldn't figure out and it turns out it was something like albedo, of the reflectivity of, it was just something just strange and that nobody was considering, that the computer had noticed, just weird stuff like that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that was my thing this week. I thought that was interesting. I liked that it was kind of had a skeptical angle as well, because the whole headline aspect doesn't happen very often with the robots, but hey.
Yeah, there's some good skeptics at Gizmodo.
Yeah. Yep. So we've covered all of the main, all the bases, all the big bullets, got all the pins taken care of. There's some chatter, like Ben's got some interesting chatter on the chat, enjoying the skeptic about robots. But I'm gonna just, since we've gone over time, I think we should wrap the show up and stuff. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. First off,
Agreed.
I want to jump up and down ecstatic and scream and yell and hit the ceiling, because Andrew Hansford wins the video this week. One, it was a tricky one, and two, someone got it, which is awesome. I think that's awesome, and congratulations, Andrew. The movie is a 1981 Michael Crichton movie called Looker.
Oh
yeah.
Somebody posted. Did Jeff Wag post that or something? Someone did recently, and I was surprised that Michael Crichton had a movie in the early '80s.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
He did some other kind of odd stuff and things. But yeah, I enjoy this one. It's another one with really bad special effects, and some of it is kind of in the age that we're in now, where we have such wonderful computer generated imagery and fake actors and we create things out of thin air to make movies. There's some relevance in this. So, which, if you don't know, it's about models being virtualized in a way, and that gives away a little bit of a spoiler. So, anyway, it's still a wonderful watch if you like old sci-fi. So there you go. Congratulations, Andrew. I don't think we have any announcements. Do you have any announcements this week? Is anything coming up? You got any other podcast stuff you guys are doing? Any cons? Any interesting things that the people need to know?
Well, Dragon Con's coming up.
Yep, that is coming up. I'm not going because it's difficult and expensive. But there are lots of cool skeptical things like there, and a lot of awesome sci-fi.
A lot of good nerdy
stuff there. So if you haven't been, you should go at least once because it is a unique
hardly
thing.
Be hot at all.
Right.
Right.
How many hotels is it going to now?
God.
All the hotels.
All the hotels. I mean, last time I went, it was 5 hotels.
Yeah, I think that the con itself uses, but people virtually fill up.
Yeah, I mean,
all the downtown hotels.
You have to be clever to get accommodations nearby. So.
Oh yeah, you have to have booked your hotel months ago.
Yeah.
It's really too bad we don't have a 24-hour subway in Atlanta because that would considerably simplify getting a Dragon Con hotel.
Yeah,
that's true.
You could just get one way out on the subway line and take the train in.
Well, there's no other announcements. Let's do the book thing. The thing with the books. You guys got books?
Yep.
I got to figure out a page, but
I'm going to go down the line. Let's go first, Eve.
About this time also, the East Saxons who had once rejected the faith and driven out Bishop Mellitus again accepted it under the influence of King Oswy. For Siebert, their king, successor to Siebert the Small, was a friend of Oswy.
It's your family?
And often used to visit him in the province of the Northumbrians. Oswy used to reason with him how gods made by man's handiwork could not be gods. And there's more about gods and stuff.
Yay. Oh. Bob?
And yet, for many Chicago's extremes, the rapid and relentless growth, the chasm between rich and poor, the skyscraper temples standing like bulwarks against the sin of the levee, conspired to create a place bursting with promise and excitement. To Mark Twain, it was, quote, astonishing Chicago, a city where they're always rubbing the lamp and fetching up the genie and contriving and achieving new impossibilities.
Fetching the genie. That's my
rubbing the lamp.
It's my David Bowie cover band from the 80s. It's 80s Bowie cover band.
There you go. Rubbing the genie. I'm a bad person.
Tim, your turn. Go.
In the tape scene, Briggs enters a nondescript locale like a rooftop, elevator, pawn shop, or penny arcade, sometimes exchanging a seemingly innocuous code phrase with a contact. He is left alone to uncover and activate a tape, record, or other playback device. A tape voice explains an imminent crisis beyond the means of conventional solutions, and offers it to Briggs.
This book time reading will self-destruct.
It
will.
Yeah.
It seems that mining madness ran amok last week, claiming more than its usual share of victims. William Benjamin butchered at least 2 of his own men. 8 more men are missing and presumed dead. Chuck Werinsky of Chuck's Feed and Grain was on his normal supply run to the Benjamin mine. Werinsky found Benjamin wandering in the desert about 3 miles from the mine. Benjamin was ranting on and on about monsters, Winsky said. He said demons killed his crew. He had pretty bad cut on his arm and was bleeding all over the place. He was clutching a strange knife in his hand. What's your bookie?
Bede's Ecclesiastical History of the English People.
Yeah. Mine is
pretty cover.
Dean Jobs' Empire of Deception. Incredible story of a master swindler who seduced a city and captivated the nation.
Seduced a city. Ew.
His name is Leo Koritz. This is the baddie.
Yeah, of course, that's him. And Tim?
It's the complete Mission Impossible dossier and episode guide, which I bought.
Oh my God, it's got little markers in there. You've been marking pages?
Oh yeah. Well, it's also very dog-eared. I bought it for like $10 on eBay, and what was hilarious was it came from a used book company, and there was like some random piece of paper inside the book, and a bootleg Enya CD. Just jammed in the book. It's like they just filled it off the shelf, left it in an envelope, and sent it to me.
Yeah, cool. There's a cool bookstore. Actually, it's that's right. It had a fire. It's not open anymore. There's a thing called a Book Thing, which is a book. It's a free book share.
Oh, nice.
That's really cool. They always have interesting finds there. And nearby is another bookshop, used bookshop called Normals, which is I have this anthology of old sci-fi movies, which is like that was just really, really cool. I think I might have done on the show once. Anyway, my book was let's see, this was written by the #1 New York Times best-selling author Scott Sigler.
Scott!
Yeah, this is
usually at Dragon Con.
Yep. This is Earth Core, which is one of his latest. And it kind of fits a little bit, as far as I can tell, in the pandemic universe, and I'm really enjoying it. It's got interesting characters in it, and of course, suspense and drama and stuff like that, and weird stuff. So, I'm not quite done with it yet, but I've been enjoying it quite a bit. I like his style. If you haven't read any of his stuff, one, he's a lot of fun to read, and two, if you like, there's a lot of sci-fi horror type stuff. But he's also a great guy. So if you ever see him at Dragon Con or somewhere else, say, yeah, that's it. Ben Bradley just mentioned it on the chat. The Andromeda Strain is the one that I was trying to think of that was from the 70s that Michael Crichton did. So that was kind of one of the things that put him on the map. Yep.
Yeah, he also directed the original Westworld.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Huh.
Which was like 1972 or something like that.
Yeah.
Damn.
Very cool. Very cool. Anyway, that's before he became a anti-environmentalist.
Anyway.
And a little bit of a weirdo in other respects. Anyway, I think that's a show. What do you think? You think that's a show?
Yeah, that's a show.
That's a show. It is now the time for me to do that thing and that thing. And I'm gonna have to, you guys dance while I look up what I'm supposed to say. The Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of whatstheharm.net, Skeptical Humanities, myself, ICBS Everywhere, and Delphi News. Our logo was designed by Sarah Mayhew at sarahmayhew.com. And our theme music is used by Music Can and Music Commercial. I almost finished in time. Yeah, that's enough. Have a nice evening. Thanks for watching.